Okay, so now what we're going to have a look at now is your market research objectives. Okay, and in the market research objectives, what we're trying to look at there is, well, what information do you need to help you make some decisions in your business? Okay, so one of the things we need to consider is, well, how much time and effort should we be investing in answering a question? So we need to make sure we're asking the right questions. Okay, so your scope of research, so how much or how big it needs to be, is going to be determined by what you want to achieve, the types of decisions that you're going to make from that, and what it's going to help you understand or drive those business decisions. So obviously the more important they are, the more a priority this is going to get, and the broader it may or may not have to be. So some of the information that we might want to go from there is to think about getting started, defining the objective. Okay, so the information that we need first is, well, what's the purpose here? Okay, which is the most important part of the process really, because understanding what the question is going to help us determine, well, what's the purpose? Okay, so why are we doing this? Okay, what information do we want? And also, once we've got that information, well, what are we going to do with it? Okay, so the purpose of the research, what's it for? Understanding what information we want, and also how are we going to use that information is going to drive a lot of that. Okay, now when we look at that, there's a couple of different ways that we start to look at our market research. And one of them might be problem ID. Okay, this is where we want to know what's going on in our organization and find problems. We might do exploratory research. Exploratory research, we might be doing problem solution, where we want to find out how to fix a problem that we have, or also conduct conclusive research into our business and find out what's going on there. So when we start to look at problem identification research, what we're looking at there is we're trying to identify an existing or a potential problem that might not necessarily be apparent and obvious to us. Okay, so we're trying to look at, well, what's our market potential? What is our market share? What are the market characteristics? Also be looking at our sales analysis, and also then being able to do some forecasting within our business. Okay, so when we go into that, we start to think about, well, what was the market potential? And then when we're talking about market potential, we're saying, look, if we're looking at an area, are there enough people or is there enough business in that area for us to be able to grow? Okay, so is there enough in it to give us some business growth and an opportunity to go somewhere? Okay, the next thing we start to look at is, well, what's attractive about that area, or what's attractive about an industry or market to a particular organization. So what is it we want to get out of that space? And there are a number of characteristics that we start to consider, and one might be, well, what's the current market size? So how many people are in there? Also, what's the projected market growth? Okay, so is it going to get bigger over time, or what's going to happen with it? We also need to think about, well, how many other competitors are out there? How many other businesses are in that space as well? And we start to think about, well, how fragmented is that area? Okay, so are people geographically dispersed? What are the technological skills? Where are they? How do they interface with us? How spread out are they? And all those sort of various characteristics. Okay. Now, from there, we might want to start thinking about also going into our sales analysis. And with our sales analysis, we start to ask a little bit about, what's our sales process? What's our most profitable customers? What are the market trends? What's going on out there? What are the geographic buying patterns? What products are selling, and knowing about the profits that are generated by each one. Okay, so we start to look at, well, in other words, what are people buying? What are people participating in? Okay, we're looking back through our sales analysis, or possibly, the sales analysis of our competitors. We're out there trying to understand what's happening. And we need to remember that it is the 80-20 rule, definitely comes into that. And that is that 20% of our customers are probably going to give us 80% of our profit. Bearing that in mind, we need to really have a good grasp then on who are our 20%. Because if we lose one or two of those, they're going to have a significant impact on our business. If we lose a small customer, we lose a small one. But if we lose a large one, we're really going to feel it. So we need to possibly know who they are and understand where they fit in within our broader market. Okay, the other thing is we start to be able to look at things like forecasting. Will we be able to meet future demand, or lack of demand, in our marketing production efforts. Now, what we're talking about there is, we might be looking at if we run a restaurant by the sea or a shop by the sea, we might be selling ice creams, and we know that the ice creams are going to sell in summer and in winter, not so much. So we can forecast to have enough stock on hand in summer to sell the ice cream to our customers, but in winter, maybe we don't need so much. Or, maybe we can change things up a little bit to take that into account. Now, when we get down into exploratory research, what we're talking about there, it's a form of basic preliminary research to determine what's going on, so what's happening. It's not there to provide evidence, okay? All we're trying to do there is to understand, well, what? Okay, exploratory research is crystallize a problem and identifies information. Okay, so it could be that the problem is we don't sell any ice creams at winter, or we don't think so. So let's go out and find out, well, what is the nature of the problem there? So why don't we sell ice creams at winter? Okay, exploratory research isn't there to try and define a particular set of answers. All exploratory research is designed to do is to lead us to really understanding a problem. Okay, once we understand the problem, so, if this one says, what is the problem? We then look at, well, what's the problem solution? That becomes the next part of research. If we're still stuck with it and we want to turn it into well, let's solve it, we might start looking at our segmentation. Once again, what's the market segment we're going after? Is it our product that we need to have a look at? Is it our pricing needs to be adjusted? Is it the way we promote the product needs to get looked at, or even the way we distribute the product that we need to have a look at? So when we get down to problem, we look at, first of all, well, what's our segmentation? So who are these people in the bubble again? Are we after the right people? How can we make sure we're pitching our product to the right customer? Now, as it is, we've sold our ice cream all the time to people who are going to the beach in summer, and that's always been our advertising. We're always selling to that same market. What we might find is if we're undertaking a problem solution research, we might find new people to start to sell to. We might be able to find alternate suitable customers, and then we can target them with our marketing dollars and maximize the effect. We might also start to understand a little bit about our product at that stage. And when we're looking at adjusting the product, we might say, well, is the product we have meeting their needs? Or do we need to change the product? Is it meeting their needs? Is it meeting their wants? Or do we need to modify it? Are they telling us actually, well, look, we really like your ice cream, but in the middle of winter it's cold? And we might say, well, what if we put some hot fudge on the ice cream? Would that solve it? Because now you've got something warm with a little bit of cold, would that work? For romantic walks on the beach, or if we're the hotel, we know in winter, our customers, they might want something different if we're a beachside motel. Okay, we might then also have a look at our pricing, and we might say, well, okay, are we selling a budget product? Are we selling a luxury product? That's going to start to come into it a little bit as well, thinking about our segments. But we might actually start to think about the actual value of the product versus the perceived value of the product. What do the customers think they're getting out of that? And possibly, could we charge more? Could we charge less? Do we need to have discretionary pricing? Do we need to have a winter warmer special at our hotel? And this is where one of the things is that people start to adjust. They make assumptions quickly. And we start to think about, well, it's winter, so quick, chop the price of the ice cream. Maybe actually that's a time to value add or do something a little bit different with it. Okay, could we change the pricing? Could we have a winter special for our beachside resort? We know that not too many people are going to come to a hotel in winter because it's by the beach, but we still want people to come. We still have wages to pay. We still have ongoing costs. Maybe we can do a special for winter. Alternatively, maybe we can go after a different segment. Maybe we target a business community for seminars or those sort of things. Okay, but the key point is not just to jump in and start doing things without checking. Once we have those answers, we can also maybe look at the way we're doing our promotions. We can have a look at what channels of information or communication are we using. How are we getting the information out there to our people? Is it the most effective way we can do that? Are all our promotions, billboards at a place where no one's going to? How are we pushing our product out there? And do we need to use certain incentives to boost sales? In winter, once again, for the ice cream, do we need to have some sort of deal going where people can come along, buy one, get one free, bring a friend, that sort of stuff? We can think about what we want to do there. But as I say, I can't make a point clearly enough. Make sure that you don't just go off and putting out some sort of solution without actually finding out what's going on and coming to a researched outcome. The last one we might look at there is our distribution, okay, which is understanding, some of our problems created by our sales channel. We need to think about how does that channel operate, what is the process of getting the goods or services from us directly into the hands of our customer. And in that case, sometimes it might be appropriate to say, well, if our channel of distribution isn't working, the wholesaler doesn't understand the product or the retailer doesn't understand the product, maybe we need to go direct to the customer and start putting information in their hands. Remember, it's not the customer's job to know your product. And at the same time, are you really going to just trust a retailer or a wholesaler to be able to understand how to sell your product? Or are you going to say, well, actually, I need to take charge of that and go accordingly? Now, if they're able to do it, fantastic. But if they're not, be prepared to jump in there and work with it. Another question might be things like your supply chain and its ability to meet the demand of what you've got. Can they actually take the items from where they need to be into the hands of your consumers? Okay, there's nothing worse than a warehouse full of stock that can't get to your people because it hasn't been planned. Okay, so you might be looking at that. And the last thing we're going to start looking at then is we're going to start to understand, well, what is conclusive research? And when we look at conclusive research, what we're really trying to do is break down our research method into two main approaches, which is descriptive research and causal. So descriptive versus causal. When we're looking at descriptive, what we're looking at is we're looking at who, what, where, when, and how. Okay, when we start to look at causes, we start to look at why. Okay, so we might say that if we're looking once again at our ice cream by the sea, it becomes a really straightforward idea of, well, who's buying the ice cream? Well, the purchaser of our ice cream are people between the age of 10 through to the age of 45. What do they buy? They buy a single serve soft cone with ice cream in it and something stuck in top of it because it's nice. Where do they buy it? They buy it at our store. They buy it from the shop front. They don't usually come inside. They just want to buy it the outside. When do they buy it? They buy it particularly through the summertime periods between the hours of 10 o'clock in the morning till about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. How do they purchase it? They tend to purchase with cash and some people with card. Okay, and we start to get a whole lot of information there. What that's not telling us is why do they buy it? Okay, when we get down to causal research, that's where we start to get down to a cause and effect. Why does this happen? Why do they do that? So what changes to make that happen? Okay, why do they buy in summer instead of winter? Obviously, okay, if it's ice cream, maybe that's a little bit self-explanatory, but that's what we're really trying to get down to, is to try and understand, well, what happens and what's the effect? If the temperature changes, what does that do to our ice cream sales? Okay. So one's descriptive, we're understanding the details, and when we get to causal, we start to look at, well, why is something happening? Okay? So really, just to sum up your market research objectives, at the end of the day, regardless of the method that you're using, what you really want to get to the bottom of is who, what, where, when, how, and why. You have a range of different things you can employ. You can be doing market research to solve a problem, understand, is there a market I want to go into? Is there information about that I want to know? What's going on? What's happening? I can do some exploratory, which is giving me just an answer. I want to find out, well, what is going on? It might be a problem solution that now I've had some exploratory information. I found the problem in my business. I now want to get to a point where I can actually find out how to fix it or do something about it. And the last one, I might start looking at getting a real good description of a particular segment or a particular piece of information, and then understand the causal relationships about why things are affecting each other. Okay, and they're the different ways I can go about that. So good luck out there. I hope you have some great research. Think about how you want to approach it. Think about the reasons you're going to approach that information, and think mostly about, well, once you have that information, what do you intend to do with it? And that's going to shape your method. It's going to shape how much resource you put to it, and then make sure that your research has a really good outcome, because you've then used it appropriately and not wasted your time and money. Good luck.